Okay, so now that we've taken care of that step, we're going to return. We're back in Bubble. What I have here is simply a field, a simple form that contains an input field and a button. Okay, that's literally all we're going to do. In your use case, you may be doing other things. More than likely, you have workflows in place. You're putting this information into the database, pulling it out. All of those different things are probably needs that you have. And these basic steps will be applicable in all of those scenarios because we're going to use Bubble to extract this data using regex and then insert that data after it is cleaned and decoded, insert that data into the database, and then we're going to display it here in its final format, which will actually be retrieved from the database to prove the concept. Okay, so this button actually is linked to this particular workflow. Okay, and if you don't know how to do that, you essentially just tap the button, click the Start Edit Workflow button. Okay, now what I've already done is laid out a completed set of workflow with actions to accomplish our goal. Well, I'm going to walk you through how I did it. Again, this video isn't for anything other than regex parsing, but just for the sake of drilling this concept home to you, I want to show you exactly what we did. It's only a few steps. So we want to, when that button is clicked, we basically want to pull the data from this area, use regex to parse it, and then insert it into a database, and then display the end result here, the final value here. All right, so we're going to do data. We're going to do create new thing. We're going to use parse parameters. Okay, now this is a database table that was set up prior to this video, specifically for this purpose. It only has one field. It's called API response. Okay, so we want to populate the data from the field that I showed you earlier, and we want its value. Okay, now just to drive the concept home, I'm going to show you what happens with just pulling that data into the database, what your end result would be. Because obviously you're going to get everything. All right, so this field is showing you all of this, which is just an image of this, which is actually the data. All of that is lined up here. This is what you don't want. Okay, you only want email, the email address itself. You don't want all of these other parameters and all of these other values. So if I go back and look in the database, you'll actually see what, again, there's only one entry here, and that's because we just loaded that exact information into the database. All of that. Yeah, we don't want that. All right, so what we're going to do next is, all right, now we know we need to use, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, right? We're going to append the extract with regex option. Okay, and this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Because you want to go back here and grab this bit of syntax that you created earlier. You want to insert that into this field, and we're going to close. All right, and we're going to go back to the front end and see what the end result looks like. See if our syntax is accurate. Okay, so I've hit the button again. Now what we have is basically email, the and sign email parameter equals the actual email address and the following ampersand, which is exactly what we were told here that we would have. So it's worked. Essentially, at this point, you have successfully used regex to extract a value from a string of text. In this case, an API response, still a string of text, delineated or using the ampersand or the and symbol as a separator. So that's good, but this is not an email address. Okay, there's no @ symbol, there's no periods in front of the .com or any other place where there might be one, and percentage 2D is actually not allowed as a part of a domain name. So we know something is still off here. Okay, and this is where we get into decoding something that has been percent encoded. There's a so what we're going to use to fix that is a series of find and replace functions to massage that string, the data that we pulled into it looks like we want it to look. What we want it to look like is a normal looking email address. So the very first thing I'm going to do is use find and replace. The first thing that I'm going to do is get rid of that static piece of information, okay, which is the actual email followed by the equal sign. I know that that's going to be there every time, and I know that I would like to have that removed. Now, there's a button here, a checkbox here that says use the regex pattern. In my testing, this checked or not checked, the result has been exactly the same. In my experience, I'd rather have less information or less instructions than more for performance, so I'm not going to check it. The text to find has been identified as email equals. Replaced by, well, we don't want to replace it by anything. We want it to be removed. We want email equals to be removed. Okay, so we're going to leave replaced by blank. And now for proof of concept, we're going to refresh and we're going to see what happens now in Bubble when we run this. All right, so now the email equals characters are gone. As you can see, right? There's nothing to the left. We still have some information over here to the right. But now we have an ampersand at the beginning, and we have one at the end, and then we have all of this information that's in between. Okay, that's our email address. So we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. And hopefully this concept of what we're doing makes sense now. So guess what we're going to do next? Well, we're going to append another instance of find and replace. This time we're going to take those ampersands away. So we're going to tell Bubble, hey, every time you see an ampersand or a and symbol, replace it. That's your text to find. You're going to replace it again with nothing. Okay. So we're going to go back to the front end. We're going to refresh, and we're going to run the command again and see what happens. Okay, so now the and symbol is gone, both at the beginning and the end of the query. Starting to look more like an email address. In fact, all we need to do now is take care of replacing all the percentage encoding with the actual, we just need to decode all of the percentage encoding. Okay, now there's a page where there's another link that I'll also leave in the description section. You can also find it in the written version of this tutorial. There's a link to an article in Wikipedia that essentially shows you what all of the percent encoding ASCII characters actually are. So, for example, we had %2, the number 2 and the letter D. And if you look in the percent encoding chart, Wikipedia, you look for percent encoding, the number 2 and the letter D, and you find that, hey, that's a hyphen. The hyphen is what is the decoded version of percent to and the letter D. All right, so you may be able to guess what we're going to do next. We're going to go back to find and replace, and we're going to append yet. We're going to go to our last find and replace, and we're going to append another find and replace. And this time we're going to populate percentage to and the letter D. And this time we're going to actually use the replace by field, and we're going to place a hyphen in there. Rinse, repeat. We'll go back to the front end. We'll refresh, and we will look at, we'll run, press the button, and lo and behold, that percent to D was replaced with a hyphen. So this is looking more like a normal email address now. In fact, it looks like %40, %2E, %2E twice. So we need to do %40, %2E. Once we decoded those using the find replace functionality in Bubble, we should have the actual final email address. Again, before we do that, let's go and see what %2E actually should be replaced with. %2E should actually be replaced with a period. And while we're here, to save some time, we're also going to look for %40. All right, it wasn't in this chart, but scroll up the page here on this Wikipedia article, and there's %40. That's actually a representation or encoded version of the @ symbol. Okay, so we're going to go back. First, let's do the, why don't we go in order? %40, and then we'll do these last 2% to E. Again, we're going to append another find and replace function. I don't know how many of these you can have, and don't know what it can actually do to your performance if you're doing it at a very large scale, but for our purposes, it seemed to work very quickly. So %40 is the text to find, and the @ symbol is the replace by that we would like to use. We're going to refresh the page. We're going to click the button on the form again, and boom, right before your eyes, that %40 was decoded to an @ symbol. Now we're going to do %2E, and we only need to do that once. Even though there's 2 instances of it, they should both be taken care of with the same function. So we'll do find replace, %2E should be replaced with the period, close, refresh the page, and try again. Press the button again, and that is it. So that we've successfully converted this, all of this, to pull out this, okay, and then convert it into an actual real live email address. As a bonus, I'm going to show you, just again to help drive this concept home. You probably have it all figured out by now. I'm going to look at the database entries that were made every time we pressed the button here, just to show you how we progressed in massaging the parameter down to what we actually needed. Every one of these entries is a database entry, where we, in each one of these, we implemented a different or an additional step or additional function on the data, so that we could get it to what we wanted it to do. So this kind of thing is just, it's a really conventional way, useful way to test these kinds of things. You know, again, there wasn't a whole lot of data for Bubble on regex, although there was a significant amount of data on the web for regex itself, just not how to use it in Bubble. So this again is just something extra to keep in your back pocket. It may help you as you're stepping through cleaning up the data so that it is usable. and human readable. And that's it. Happy coding or happy bubbling.